Hello, everybody. Our parsha discusses, amongst other things, in Parshat Behar, the laws of the Yovel year. We know that one of the aspects of the Jubilee year was the freeing of all servants, that is, any Eved Ivri, Ukratem Durar, Ba'aretz L'chol Yosheveha, V'shavtem Isha L'chuzato, V'isha Mishpachto Tashuvu. The Eved would go home free from service to his master, even if he had had his ear bored when he wanted to stay with his master beyond the normal 6-year term of Avdut. This was done when the shofar was sounded on Yom Kippur of the Yovel. V'havarta shofar trua b'chodesh hashvi'i be'asar lachodesh b'yom HaKippurim ta'aviru shofar b'chol artzachem. At that time that the shofar was sounded, the avodim went free, left their masters' homes, and returned to their own residence. This had to have been a very difficult time for any Adon who was used to the comfort of having an Eved Ivri at his disposal. And therefore the Sefer HaChinuch explains that's why the shofar was blown on Yom Kippur of the Yovel year. Misery loves company, and therefore when a person contemplates the fact that his financial situation will actually be compromised when he has to set free his Eved, the sounding of the shofar reminding him that he's in good company. Everybody in a similar situation had to do the same thing. This was meant to be somewhat of a comfort for the individual. However, one has to wonder if that's really so. At the end of the day, an Adon who was used to having the advantage of possessing an Eved Ivri now had to make do without. So what if other people in similar situations also were in the same boat? And furthermore, Chazal teach us that the shofar that was sounded on Yom Kippur was not like we blow perhaps in many shuls. The minhag is that at the end of the Ne'ilah they simply blow a Tekiyah Gedolah. In other places they blow Tekiyah Sharim Trua Tekiyah. It wasn't simply a sound of an alarm, one blast of the shofar and the Avadim went free. The shofar sounds that were sounded on Yom Kippur of Yovel were identical to what we're familiar with the shofar sounding every year on Rosh Hashanah. If, in fact, the whole purpose was to let the slave owner know that he's in good company and everyone with an Eved Ivri had to send their servants free, then it should have sufficed to simply blow one blast of the shofar, everyone releases their Eved Ivri, and the person is hopefully somewhat comforted, although, as I said, that comfort is somewhat dubious and questionable. I remember seeing once an explanation. Why do we sound the shofar like we do on Rosh Hashanah with Shvarim, Trua, etc.? And the answer is because it reminds us of the Tekiyos of Rosh Hashanah. And what is the symbolism, the main symbolism of the sounding of the shofar on Rosh Hashanah? Why dafka with a shofar and those sounds? It's to remind us of the Mesirus Nefesh of Akedas Yitzchak, that Avram and Yitzchak were willing to overcome any hesitation to fulfill the divine mandate and the tzivui of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And so too, the person who owns a servant is reminded that at times what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants of us is Mesirus Nefesh. Sometimes mitzvos might even happen to be enjoyable in their fulfillment. At other times, if not enjoyable, it's not a big deal to do it. But then there are times where it's challenging. And amongst the challenges can sometimes be a sense of financial sacrifice that is involved. Who better than in our generation, where perhaps the modern form of idolatry is the lust and the hunger for money, what people won't do for money, to give up something financially required a degree of Mesiras Nefesh. And therefore, the mandate for the shofar blowing on Yom Kippur of Yovel was to resemble that of Rosh Hashanah and to remind us of the Mesiras Nefesh of Avraham and Yitzchak. And Mesiras Nefesh has really been the hallmark of the Jew throughout the generations. And it is a reminder to us that hopefully we find it easy and natural to fulfill the gezerot of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but knowing that at times there will be a test, a challenge, and that's when we too are called upon to demonstrate Mesiras Nefesh. Shabbat Shalom.